What's up, YouTube? Welcome to Quantifying Sports. If this is your first time watching this channel is about how data science and sports can connect together and how I can produce different ways of predictive algorithms and different models that kind of show where I'm heading. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about how prime Michael Jordan would play in the NBA today. This took a very long time and a huge learning curve, and I believe that I have a very accurate prediction of how he would play in the modern era today. Stay tuned. We're going to be talking about his points, rebounds, and assists and how I got there. Super excited to share this with you guys. Okay, so the first thing that I wanted to find out was which Michael Jordan's years was his prime year. Many people have different opinions on this. I know that he averaged like 37 points one year, which is absolutely ridiculous. He had many great seasons, but I picked his 1990 to 91 season. He was the most hungry for his first championship at this time. He had his great scoring ability, arguably the best ever, very athletic. He was way more mature at age 27. He had great leadership and commitment to his team's success. Jordan averaged 31.5 points per game. He averaged 6 rebounds, 5.5 assists, 2.7 steals per game, winning his second MVP award, another scoring title, was the highest in win shares. In the NBA Finals, Jordan averaged a double-double with 31.2 points, 6.6 rebounds, and 11.4 assists facing against Magic Johnson, winning his first NBA championship. Jordan, actually, he completed the triple crown of his titles, so he finished in the NCAA, NBA, and Olympics. Some say that this is the foundation or the start of the legacy of the Chicago Bulls and what was to come. He was the most efficient player with a PER, or player efficiency rating, of 31.0, second to David Robinson with 29.4. He had the highest win shares, which I just talked about, and he had the greatest combination between his athletic talent and maturity for the game of basketball. That's why I picked the 1990 to 91 season. So before we dive really deep into what I have for you guys, I wanted to talk about some important keynotes that I want to tell to you guys so you guys can understand the video later on. So the first of that is a term called pace. So pace is the average estimated amount of possessions per 48 minutes or in one game. So it's just the average. So I usually took a league average or a team average for this. So for example, in the pace in 2023, it was 98.5. So they had 98.5 possessions, okay? And in the pace in 1990 was actually very similar with a pace of 97.8. So very, very similar, not different at all. So I'm going to have two graphs to share with you guys about pace. So one of which is talking about the NBA's pace versus points in seasons. So you can see that this is a very linear line. So if you increase pace or if you increase points, that the other will generally increase, okay? So that's the first one. The keynote about this graph is just that the 2020 to 2023 seasons, they have shot more efficient. So that's one thing to note. And that the pace usually in the older seasons were pretty lower compared to the pace of the 2020 to 2023. But one thing I found interesting was that the 1979 to 1989 was actually a higher pace than what the NBA is today, which is crazy. For my second model, I wanted to briefly talk about the NBA pace by season. So this model right here just shows you guys that as pace goes on, it's actually kind of crazy. So the middle seasons that I found, so the oldest season I had was 1979 to 1980, but then the newest one was last year's season. But the middle seasons, I would say from 2018 to like 1993, there's a huge dip in pace, which was very interesting. But the outer edges, you can see that the pace was very strong. Okay, so the second thing I wanted to talk about was defensive ratings. So what is a defensive rating? A defensive rating is an estimate of how many points a team scores in 100 possessions. So ideally, you would want a lower score. So you'll see in this graph that I'm about to show you right here, where it's just showing the average defensive rating as a league as a whole compared to the average points per game as an average for the league as a whole. And the blue dot is the 1990 to 91 season, and the gold dot or yellow dot is the 2023 to 24 season. So as you can see here, the 1990-91 season is 8 points in defensive rating better than the 2023 to 24 season. So this may induce questions of, in today's league, is defensive-oriented basketball getting too weak, or are people just getting way too good scoring the basketball? That is a big question in today's league. I just wanted to bring this to your attention. Let's move on. Okay, so thirdly, I wanted to talk about the average height in 1990 versus the average height in 2023 and how it has not changed at all. So right here is a graph that just shows the average NBA player height by seasons. So you can see here, the red dot is the 1990 to 91 season, and the blue dot is the 2023 to 24 season. All of the other dots are green, which just show the other seasons. As you can see here, they are all averaged out to be 79 inches, which is just 6 feet 7 inches. So this does not play a factor in how Michael Jordan would have played if he transitioned across eras. All right, the last thing I wanted to talk about was the average points per game by NBA season. So that'll be right here. The x-axis is just showing the seasons, and then the points per game is going to be on the y-axis. And if you ever need to come back and just want to look at this, it'll be right here. But let's continue and let's get deep into the stuff I have prepared for you guys today. Okay, time to get into it. So the first methodology in finding an accurate resemblance of Michael Jordan in today's league was z-scores. So a z-score is a statistical measure that describes how many standard deviations a point is from the mean of a data set. So in simpler terms, the z-score tells you how far and in what direction a specific point deviates from the average in terms of standard deviation. So for example, a z-score of 0 indicates that the data point is exactly at the mean, whereas a z-score of +2 means the data point is 2 standard deviations above the mean. A z-score of -1.5 means that it is 1 point standard deviations below the mean. Okay, so I want to get into the data that I found. So the data I found, I used all the players in 1990 to 91 to create a normal curve for points per game, assists per game, and rebounds per game. I found that it was very heavily right skewed. So I used machine learning called log transformations to normalize better. I then used a second data set where I used all the players who had stats in the 2023 and 24 season to compare z-scores. You'll see what I mean in a second. I first want to get into points per game. So right here is the long transformed points distribution with a normal curve. So this is the 1990 season, okay? So I wanted to find how many standard deviations he was away from the mean, which is the z-score, okay? So I put Michael Jordan in. So he was the highest scorer of that NBA season, so he's going to be pretty fairly high. So I found his z-score after the log transformation was 2.02, whereas we plug that in, or now we take a z-score, or standard deviations away from the mean, remember, and put it into the 2023 data to see where his points should be. So his points right here in the 2023 season, this is all the stats from 2023, I log transformed it, put it under a normal curve. I found that a z-score of 2.02 corresponds to 32.09 points per game, so it is slightly higher than his 1990 season. So next I want to get into the assists. So I used the same method that I used for the points. So what I did was I took the 1990 data, I found a z-score, and then I plugged it back in to the 2023 data. So you'll see the 1990 data where I found a z-score of 1.56 standard deviations above the mean. And then I plugged that in to the 2023 data where I found that a z-score of 1.56 equals 5 assists per game. Okay, so the last stat we're going to be finding for z-scores is rebounds. So what I found is I plugged it in under the 1990 data, similar to points and assists, and I found that his z-score, after plugging it into the 1990 data, was 1. So I plugged that z-score of 1 into the 2023-24 season, and I found that a z-score of 1 equates to 5.55 average rebounds per game. Okay, now we're going to be moving on to different things. We are not done though. Let's keep moving. So just a summary of what we found so far. I'm gonna put a little like picture up here that shows our summer statistics so far just using z-scores. Okay, so if you didn't watch the video, you can look at here. It is 32.09 points per game, 5.0 assists per game, and 5.55 rebounds per game. If his z-scores from 1990 were put in today's NBA. So we didn't touch anything else, just z-scores. One of the most exciting things to find in this video was Michael Jordan's average points per game that he would have in the 2023 and 24 season. So what I did to do that is I had two methods, but the first one we're going to talk about is using our z-score adjustment from earlier. So it's 32.09 points per game. And we're going to include this thing called a point usage rate that I came up with. So the point usage rate is just Michael Jordan's points per game in 1990 divided by the Chicago Bulls' average team points in 1990. So that would be 31.5, as you can see, divided by 110. So that point usage rate equals 0.286. So our first method was from the z-score adjustment. Now we're just going to include this point usage rate. So that is 32.09 from the z-score adjustment plus the point usage rate, or plus the multiplication of the point usage rate, and the subtraction of the league average points per game scored in the 2023-24 season and the 1990 Bulls average points per game. So this first method gave us a predicted points per game value of 34.4 points per game. Okay, so the second method I wanted to use was just strictly defensive ratings. So I didn't want to put this with the first method we used because there are some conflicting variables that would lead to inaccuracy on the first method we used. So I kept it its own separate thing. So what I did was I took MJ's points per game back then, which was 31.5, and then multiplied it by the change or difference in defensive ratings from 2023 to 1990, which I got 33.89 points per game. For both of the methods, I wanted to adjust for the pace differences in the league back then to now. So as we talked about earlier, the pace difference was very minimal, but it can impact our points per game. So what I did was, to account for this slight difference, we adjusted Jordan's z-score points per game and defensive ratings points per game, which was 34.4 and 33.89 if you remember. And we multiplied it by the difference in the 2023 pace and the 1990 pace, which we got a range of values from 34.13, which was the defensive ratings method, and the 34.68 points per game, which was the z-score prediction. So all of these methods converge to suggest Michael Jordan's scoring ability would be exceptionally high in today's NBA. It just reflects how good he was back then and how it would convert today's league pretty well. All right, so next we're going to finalize Michael Jordan's assists. And first I wanted to talk about the assist usage rate. So just like the point usage rate, I used his average assists per game in 1990 divided by the Chicago Bulls 1990 team average in assists per game, which was 5.5 divided by 27, which equated to 0.2037. So I used that number and multiplied it by the average assists by the NBA team in 2023, which was 26.7, which equated to 5.438. The pace was pretty much identical, like I mentioned earlier, and the assist per game was pretty much identical as well, so there shouldn't be much change in this. However, I multiplied the 5.438 that I mentioned earlier, and by the difference in pace from 2023 to 1990, where I got 5.47 or 5.48, and then going back to the log score z-score transformation, I got 5.0 assists per game. So I multiplied that as well by the difference in pace, and I got 5.04. So this range of values from 5.04 to 5.48, I feel like captures the average amount of points per or assists per game that he would dish out in today's league. Moving on to rebounds now. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to talk about was Michael Jordan's rebounds. This is the last important statistic we're going to be using in today's video. So we're going to start with a term I made up. It's called a rebound statistic, which was his percentage of rebounds he grabbed on the team times the league average in today's, which I got was 6.127. If you can see here, the six that is shown right here is just his average in the season 1990, Michael Jordan's average. And then this 42.6 is the team average for the Chicago Bulls of the 1990 season. So I found his percentage of rebounds on the team and multiplied with the league average in the 2023 and 24 season, which I got 6.127, which is going to be our high range of values. So our low range that I found was, we went back to our z-scores, and our log z-score transformation said that it was approximately 5.55 rebounds per game. So I'm just multiplying that by the difference in pace, so 98.5 divided by 97.8, which I got 5.59 approximately. So our range in rebounds is from 5.59 to 6.127. All right, we are done. After the countless hours that I spent on this video, the overall final results is going to be right here. Hopefully you guys didn't skip this video. If you guys did, you guys should go back and watch this because it is a very amazing process. But to summarize, our points per game range of values is from 34.13 to 34.68, which is such a tiny gap that it is a very accurate predictor of what you would score in today's league, just because we use multiple methods to get a pretty similar result. The assists per game, we got 5.04 to 5.48. So once again, that is very similar. It's a drop in his average assists from 1990, but that's just because of the difference in paces and the league average in assists. It just makes sense. So he could very much well score more than this, but I think that this is a pretty fair estimator of what you would dish out in today's NBA game. And lastly, we have our rebounds per game. So our range of values consists of 5.59 to 6.13. So it does contain his value that he had when he played, but I gotta say, this is such an accurate predictor. I feel very confident in this. If we literally just plopped Michael Jordan into today's league and just made him play a full season, I think that these would be very similar results. So who would these stats closely resemble in today's NBA? This is the most fascinating part. So his points per game, or his scoring, I consisted of it as like a Joel Embiid or Luka Doncic's scoring, but without a knockdown three-pointer. So he shot 31.2% from three and only shot on average 1.1 times per game. So if he shot more three-pointers, because today's game is more reliant on three-pointers, his points per game would be even higher. But I just made sure that if I just plopped Michael Jordan from 1990 and just put him in today's league, his raw self, this is the amount of points per game he would score. So he would have Joel Embiid's or Luka Doncic's scoring, which is ridiculous. His passing-wise would be around Kyrie Irving's passing, DeMar DeRozan's passing, and De'Aaron Fox's passing. So they're all great passers. And then lastly, we're going to talk about our rebounds. He's going to be a similar rebounder to a Kawhi Leonard, to a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Zion Williamson rebounding. I would say that's pretty damn good. All right, we are all done with this video. Thank you guys for watching. Have a blessed day. And make sure to like, comment, and subscribe on this video. If you guys have any future suggestions for videos, you can leave it in the comments. Or if you just have any comments on this video in general, please leave it down below. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Hey guys, this is just a little fun thing. See if you can spot anyone or anything that is different off of this regular Sam Vincent card. I'll give you guys like 10 seconds to spot it. Did you guys spot MJ? He's right here with a number 12 jersey. This is the first and only production card ever from NBA Hoops and anything where Michael Jordan is wearing the number 12. It's such a cool card. If you guys got it right, leave a comment down below. Thanks for watching.